Hello, this is Lisa with Pine Door Farms. About 4 or 5 years ago, we started a Facebook group called Northern Arizona Homesteaders, and it grew pretty rapidly. In order to join, you have to answer a series of questions. And the reason we did that is to just kind of protect our members from people joining just to scam others. So there's all these different questions. Why do you want to join? What are you looking to learn, etc., etc.? And we find a lot of the very similar answers. Since the last 2 years, people are flooding out of the valleys, out of the cities, and they're going to look for land to purchase and start homesteading. People want to learn animal husbandry. They want to learn how to grow their own food. They want to learn about solar. They want to learn how to be off-grid. Just on and on and on. But that's kind of all within the same thing. People want to homestead and be self-sufficient. Years ago, I used to have a real estate license, and I worked primarily with investors. So that meant I had to do a lot of homework and a lot of research and a lot of digging to find out what's going on with a particular property, whether or not it's going to be worth my client buying, because we usually flipped it around. So as I'm seeing all of these responses to the questions and what people are looking for, I wanted to put this together and hopefully help guide you in finding the right property for you. So let's dig in. So one of the first things you want to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this property? What are you wanting to do with it? Do you just want to put a home on it and have a little garden? That's fine. You can do that. Do you want to do more? What are you looking to do? Do you want to run a business out of your home? Are you going to be having a larger garden? Are you going to be having animals on there? There's a lot of factors you need to consider before making that purchase. The thing I see the most is people are looking to buy the largest parcel of land for the cheapest amount of money. Not a thing wrong with that, because we all want a good deal. We all want to get as much land as we can. But here's what you want to keep in mind. Sometimes a cheap parcel of land is cheap for a reason. Because at this point, they might be just trying to unload it on somebody else, and then you might inherit all the problems. So do your homework. Find out, why is this so cheap? So in real estate, one of the catchphrases that's very, very common, and you've probably all heard it as well, is what to look for when choosing your parcel. Location, location, location. Super huge. It does matter, okay? You can buy a section of land and it's way the heck out there. You got to go 10 miles just to get to a road. You might have to go 20 miles just to get to a bus stop. That's great if you want to be that rural and that far out and that secluded. Take a look at the long-term picture on that. Is that something that's you're going to continue to love to do? So, do you need to be close to schools? How close to a hospital do you want to be? What about work? Do you have to have a job somewhere else and you're going to have to commute back and forth? How close to grocery stores? Getting your supplies. And then let's just say down the road you decide this isn't for you after all and you want to put that property back up for sale. Are you even in a desirable location where somebody else is interested in even buying it? These are things you need to keep in mind. Your main number one condition, other than your location, that you need to make sure of is the availability of water. Now, there's a lot of people that haul their water. That's fine. That's fine, because I will tell you, drilling a well is expensive, and not everybody has the money up front to do that. It's expensive. So a lot of people start off hauling their water, which is awesome and fine. But keep in mind, If you do want to have animals and you do want to grow your own food, you're going to be going through a lot of water. And hauling it is going to get old real quick. So you might start off hauling it, but you definitely want to find out what it's going to cost to drill a well in your area. I mean, you're not going to get the exact price, but you can have a really good general idea. Contact your local drillers. Let me give you an example. When we were looking for property, there was one parcel on the east side of Flagstaff that was super cheap. I was going the cheap route, and in my mind I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, I suppose I could plant some grass. I could probably plant trees. Which ones grow the fastest? I've got all these things going through my mind because this really wasn't a very pretty piece of property, and I love greenery around me, so I was trying to convince myself that I could do this. But the smart thing I did was I wanted to find out how much I might be looking at to put a well in. So I called one of the local drilling companies, and I told the gentleman on the phone, this is the community that I'm thinking about purchasing in. Do you have a general idea on the well depths there and what it might cost me? So the gentleman looked it up and he says, oh yeah, out there in that area, you really don't want to go there because you're going to be looking at $80,000 to $100,000 to drill a well there. So here's this parcel. I'm trying to remember, I'm thinking it was like 8 acres that I could have gotten for around $10,000. But yet that 8 acres was going to ultimately cost me $100,000 or more. So it really wasn't cheap after all. You need to be aware of these things. Zoning laws, big deal. People will buy a parcel of land and they have something in mind that they want to do and what they want to build, what a business that they want to have on there, and then after the fact they're finding out they can't do it. Some communities, some states, you're not even allowed to be off grid. You're not allowed to do rainwater collection. People are on this tiny home kick. There's some property restrictions on the size of the main residential home that you can have on there. And a lot of them have to be a minimum square foot. What about the septic systems? Are composting toilets allowed? Can you implement a gray water system? These are all super important things you need to keep in mind when you're choosing a parcel, if this is what you're wanting to do. Make sure you're allowed to do it. Are you looking for more open meadow? Are you looking for a wooded parcel? Friends of ours bought a very heavily wooded, I think 5 acres up in northern Idaho. And the two of them, husband and wife, they had to do all the clearing just to start building themselves. And cutting down those big pine trees, that was a job. Not only cutting them down, but cutting them up and hauling them off. A lot of the debris they were able to burn. Or are you going to hire somebody else to do it? That is not cheap. And you also need to make sure you even have the timber rights if you're purchasing property that is wooded. Sometimes the timber rights do not convey and it stays with the original owner. They can come on your property anytime they want to and cut those trees down if they maintain the rights to it. Make sure that transfers with it. Do you have road access? If you have road access there, make sure it's deeded legal access. Because if you're just going by somebody's generosity that you can cut across their property to get to yours, what if you piss them off down the road? They can shut you out so fast. And then trying to get an easement, they have to agree to an easement. You might end up with no access to your property after all. Also check out your road conditions year round. Are you in a snowy area? Are you in a really rainy area? Do you need four-wheel drive? Who maintains the roads? Is it your responsibility? Does the city or county do it? Things you need to check into. All right, so a lot of people are into the off-grid. We are. One of the smartest moves we ever made. We're total solar. So there's solar, there's wind turbines, hydro generators, geothermal energy, even animal power. Make sure you contact your local county zoning office to make sure that's even allowed. Are there any property restrictions? Are you allowed to have a home-based business? Are there certain animal restrictions that you can and cannot have? Are there building setbacks? Maybe you're seeing this parcel of land and oh my gosh, this is so beautiful and I want to put my house here and I want to put this house here and I want to put this there. Come to find out you've got setbacks and you can only build here or you can only build there. Things you need to check into. Can you even have multiple homes on the property? Check into it. Does your parcel of land have an HOA? Is there a homeowners association in the area where you are at? HOAs can be awesome. They're there to maintain the value of the community and all the properties and just kind of keep things nice and regulated. However, if you're wanting to homestead and you're wanting to have animals, you probably are going to want to avoid being in a community with an HOA because many of them will not allow any kind of a barnyard animal. So ask questions first before you purchase. One of the things we did when we bought our land, we went down to one of the local nurseries and we got soil testing. You can have a company come out and do a very, very thorough soil test, which will tell you what you're in excess of, what you're deficient in, so on, so on. You can also go down to your garden shops or your nurseries and you can purchase little soil kits and do your own, kind of like testing pool chlorine levels. It's very similar. That can tell you a lot of the same information, just not as detailed as if you hired a lab to do things for you. Find out what the property might have been used for before. Was it a dump? Was it saturated with pesticides? What was it used for? That'll give you another indication of whether or not this property is going to be right for you or you're going to have problems down the road. And again, home-based business. Is it allowed? We want to encourage people so much to get your own land, start growing your own food. There's not enough people growing their own food. And you don't have to have massive greenhouses and massive gardens. You can grow a little bit in a small space. Just start doing something. Because if times get super difficult and grocery store shelves are bare again, you're going to have a problem. You might think, well, I'm just going to go to my local farmer and I'm going to get stuff from them. That might not happen because everybody is going to get to a point where they're going to take care of themselves and their families first. So the best thing that we can do for you guys is to encourage you to do the same. So what are some factors here? Looking for cheap land? Do your homework. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's going to end up being cheap. Sometimes the cheapest properties can end up costing you the most. Check with your county zoning office. Call them, stop in. You don't have to give them your name. You can make up a name. You don't have to tell them the specific address. You can tell them an area. This is something you're interested in doing with the property. Have a conversation with them and find out if your plans are even allowed to be executed on that parcel of land. Again, me personally, I would record it, So I had documentation that I asked these questions, these were the answers I was given, and just kind of as a safety net there. Location is super important. You want to be way out there? That's great. Is it going to get old after a while? Can you be off grid? Are you going to hire a solar company? Which, me personally, I would recommend because you're dealing with electricity. Unless you're an electrician and you know how to do all that stuff, I'd be super careful. Ask the officials those kind of questions rather than your friend on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else. They're not going to have necessarily all the answers for you that are going to be accurate. Another little thing are these shed conversions that people are wanting to turn into a little home. Let me tell you, they're adorable. I got one with the intention of turning it into a little granny shack. And the salesman was telling me how everyone's doing this. This is how some people are framing out on the inside, and they're adorable and blah, 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 blah. So then when I'm writing the check for this and writing the contract, I also had to sign a section on there acknowledging that these little sheds are not for human occupancy. But as I'm reading that, the salesman's going, but don't worry about it. Everybody does it. It's no big deal. This is just a formality. But yeah, right. It's just a formality that you can get caught on. And ultimately, I ended up selling mine after I spent a lot of money on it. I took a huge hit on it just to get rid of it because I couldn't use it for my intended purpose. So you may never get caught. You may never get caught, but then you might. And if you do, you can't stay there. I was told by somebody else, as long as I maintained it and kept it up on blocks and on skids, it wasn't a permanent fixture, and I didn't need permits. I didn't need this. Baloney. Check with your county zoning office. And most of them in there, they're there to help you as long as you don't go in with an attitude. Be pleasant, be nice. Get your questions answered from the horse's mouth. So hopefully this little bit of tidbit can help you guys just be more cautious, ask questions, and before you write that contract, make sure you can use the property for what it is you're intending to do with it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We plan on giving you a lot more. We're going to share with you what it's like to be homesteading, to be off-grid, because it is not for the faint of heart, but we highly recommend it. So hit that subscribe button and share this with your friends. And stay tuned because we have a lot more up our sleeves. See you soon.